Hi, I'm Jeremy, the Internet Scrum Master. I have over 20 years' experience in tech and finance, and for the past decade, I've been a full-time Scrum Master. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get right into it. Your job title, Scrum Master, is actually your biggest weakness when trying to get senior leaders to listen. In 2026, the old hierarchy is dead or dying, and maybe has been for a number of years, I suppose, depending on the organization. So relying on the org chart to get things done is a fast track to being ignored. I'm going to show you how to use psychological leverage and radical transparency to drive consensus without ever asking for permission. So what if you could lead the people who lead the company strictly by influence? By mastering the art of strategic empathy and data-backed storytelling, you can bypass the traditional power dynamics entirely. Most professionals fail to influence leadership because they play by outdated rules of status and mandates. I'm breaking down how to flip the script using influence alone, turning complex corporate politics into a game of psychological leverage where your ideas become the only logical path forward. Here's the harsh reality. Your board doesn't care about your team's velocity or how many story points you cleared in the sprint. They care about ROI, risk mitigation, and fiscal transparency. If you want the C-suite to stop viewing Agile as a developer thing, you have to stop talking like a coder and start speaking the language of the bottom line. So learn how to transform skeptical executives into your biggest Agile champions by proving real-world value. Stop trying to teach your CEO the Agile manifesto. It's failing because you're using the wrong vocabulary. Instead of explaining sprints, show them how to reduce risk, increase market responsiveness. We bridge the gap between technical execution and executive outcomes and ensure products and projects get funding and support they deserve. I said projects, but ideally these would be product funded and team funded and not project funded, and we can explore that in a little bit more detail later. But I guess in short, products are long-lived, everlasting things, and projects have a specific start date and end date. And in terms of iterative development, we want a long-lived product, not short-term projects. So let's look at the psychology of why managing up, as they say, fails when you rely on your title rather than on technical excellence or social relevance. When you approach an executive relying on your title as either Scrum Master or Agile Coach, you trigger their authority filter. They see you as a process administrator. You're asking for compliance, and unless it's a regulatory compliance, executives are traditionally and almost exclusively focused on outcomes and profit revenue, not necessarily complying to a framework that, one, they don't really understand, and two, they don't know how that adds any value over how they've traditionally done things. So you have to set the stage for a transition from a permission-based mindset to a high agency influence model. That's the first step towards true leadership or true influence over leadership. Having high agency means you stop asking for permission to fix a broken system and start demonstrating the value of fixing the system in real time. Influence at the executive level is built on one thing: information. You have to start building an information advantage by sharing high velocity data that leaders are often insulated from by middle management. Middle management's primary survival tactic is often filtering bad news before it reaches the C-suite. As an Agile practitioner, as a Scrum Master, you have access to raw, unfiltered data, the unfiltered truth of product delivery. You're in with the teams every day. You know how the sausage is made, and middle management likes to hide that and deliver the final product. As an Agilist, as a Scrum Master, your job is to show people how the sausage is made. You don't tell them, you make it transparent so they can see it for themselves. So you do this by using open source internal communication to create that glass box, that transparent effect that makes your insights indispensable to an executive. When a project or a product implementation is failing, the executives or the board shouldn't find out 3 months later. They should see that bottleneck on the board immediately. So moving from reporting status to providing foresight naturally shifts the burden of decision making in your favor. When you're the person consistently providing accurate forecasts instead of lagging status updates, executives will naturally look to you before making strategic moves. Executives are humans under immense pressure. Your job is mapping the personal and professional pressures of senior stakeholders to identify their, we'll say, silent KPIs and fears. A CEO might talk about digital transformation, but their silent KPI, or what's in the back of their mind, is they want to prevent the board from firing them over sunk cost or failed product launches. So you win by reframing your initiatives as direct solutions to their specific problems rather than adding additional tasks to their already full plate. If a stakeholder is terrified of a product launch failing, you don't sell them on Agile. You sell the ability to test the market in a short time, in a 2-week time span, in a 2-week sprint, rather than in 2 years or even in 6 months. Leveraging active listening to mirror leadership language makes your ideas sound like the logical conclusion to their own goals. If you walk into a boardroom or into a product review with a stakeholder and you have a spreadsheet of story points, one of two things is going to happen. Either their eyes are going to glaze over and they'll change the subject or ask you to leave, or they're going to look at those story points and they're going to ask you to do more of those story points moving forward. And that's a bad idea. Just don't do that. Right? So you have to move beyond those metrics to craft a compelling story, one that visualizes the cost of inaction versus the return on investment, or the ROI of your proposal. Executives don't want data, they want the story that the data is telling. So you can't force executives to adopt your mindset. You have to attract them to it. You don't force them to comply to the framework. You show them through your actions that this is a better way to work. And that means creating a dynamic where leaders seek your counsel because of your consistent track record of solving problems. When you consistently eliminate blockers that speed up delivery, your reputation precedes you. This requires orchestrating peer-level buy-in across departments to present a unified front that makes executive approval a formality. Align with QA, with DevOps, with product managers, with your release train engineer, with any Agile coach on the train, or any other key people that you can bring over to your idea, to your way of thinking, and then craft the proposal that you bring to the executives. And finally, sustaining long-term influence means prioritizing the success of the project over your personal credit. And that paradoxically cements your status as a leader. When you make the executives look good, they'll ensure you have the power to keep making them look good. And sometimes that means making yourself look not so good, making yourself stand out from the group think. Lots of people, rightfully so, probably from an evolutionary perspective. I'm not a biologist or evolutionary, I don't know what that is. But anyway, it does seem that there is an advantage in a lot of situations for groupthink, for having people on the same page and agreeing with a path forward. But you do need contrarian views, because sometimes that groupthink puts you on the wrong path, or on a path that's less efficient or less able to reach your goals, right? So sometimes those contrarian views that stand out, you make yourself look like maybe the problem child. But if you're giving technically accurate information that adds value and adds information to the executives, you're probably going to keep your job. Long term, it's probably going to be beneficial for you if you can handle the kind of the pain and perhaps social isolation in the short term. So now Well, let's address why executives view Agile as a developer-only kind of thing that lacks financial predictability. When we talk about sprints, Scrum, story points to CEO or CFO, it looks like a blank check for developers to build what they want without a committed delivery date or committed scope of work. That's not necessarily true, but that's the perception that needs to be changed. So you have to highlight the capital waste, any waste, whether it's financial or time waste. All these things translate to money ultimately. So you highlight the waste caused by long cycle waterfall planning, and that can be done with a value stream map or any other way to give you the tools you need to write your story. So show them the millions of dollars wasted on products that didn't actually come to fruition or that customers didn't want what you build, just because that development cycle took so long. When you have a shorter feedback loop, then you can make smaller changes, tactical changes that enable your strategic goals, and you'll know that you're on the wrong path faster, saving more money. So transitioning from technical velocity in your reporting to a framework centered on capital preservation, cost avoidance, and strategic flexibility. So we need to transition from reporting on technical metrics like velocity to a framework centered on capital preservation, on cost avoidance, on return on investment, on revenue generation, and strategic flexibility. Agile isn't about coding faster. It's about finding out you're wrong with your assumptions before you spend your entire budget. In Scrum and in the SAFe framework, budgets should be allocated to the team or the train respectively. Then the work is brought to that team or the train for prioritization. The resources, the money, the people, go to the highest priority work, and that's a conversation and a negotiation between product, the business, the customers, and other stakeholders. Also with the development team, that negotiation is facilitated by the Scrum Master. All right, so let's translate the Scrum Guide into executive speak. First, explain how the sprint review is actually a low-cost audit of sorts that prevents 6 months of wrong direction development or investment. It's not necessarily a demo. A demo is part of that ceremony, but it is a check-in for the executives and stakeholders to ensure the product is on the right track and it's going to yield a return. And it's an opportunity for the stakeholders to bring up any issues, whether those are internal issues related to other product priorities, resource allocation, or if it's external changes in the marketplace. So maybe a competitor released a new feature that we need to parity in a very short time. So these are times where the executives have a direct line of communication, not only to the product owner, which they should have all the time, but also to the development staff, to the development team. And that gives those folks a chance to ask direct questions to the product owner, or not, both to the product owner, but also to the stakeholders. And that is an excellent forum to have alignment and develop products faster. Agile's the ultimate fiscal control mechanism, in my opinion, demonstrating how iterative cycles can provide the board with a kill switch for failing projects before they become sunk costs. If an initiative proves unviable after 3 sprints, the board can kill it, reallocate it, or reallocate the budget to another product. If you're in a waterfall environment, they wouldn't know that this was unviable until the project was done, or the budget was gone, whichever came first, I suppose. So contrast that with a traditional black box development model with radical transparency, visible work in progress. When work is visible, accountability is natural. Show how reducing batch sizes lowers the financial cost of any single strategic decision, also enabling that shorter feedback cycle. If you only build a very tiny slice of a feature, the failure is a minor setback. And if it is a success, then you know very soon that you're on the right track and you can double down on what you're doing. To truly coach up the ladder, you have to discuss the board's role, the C-suite's role in removing organizational impediments that slow down the flow of market value of development. C-suite can't demand agility. They have to actively dismantle the bureaucratic processes and policies that prevent it. And that's the kind of thing that sometimes middle managers filter out. And that's what the Agilist, the Scrum Master, the Agile coach has to get through to the executives. I know that I've worked through many Agile transformations, and typically how it goes is the executives want it. They're the ones that say, we need to go Agile, we need to speed this up, whether it's because it's the hot thing in the world at the time, or whether they genuinely think that this is going to be a better way forward. They want to implement it, and they make a bunch of people Scrum Masters, they make a bunch of people product owners in name, but then they're pretty much hands off. It's not that they don't want it, it's that they have many other things to do. So the Scrum Master, the Agile coach, has to be succinct, fact-based, emotionally controlled, and communicate to those executives the ways in which the Agile implementation can be improved, why they need to be improved, and how that improvement is going to translate into more money for the business. That's it for today. Like, subscribe, put some comments below on your thoughts about this video, how you go about communicating with leadership or just C-suite executives, and how that's gone for you in the past, any tips and tricks you might have for other people on how to be a more effective Scrum Master or Agile coach in your organization. So until next time, thank you and take care.